Katy Stracina was kind enough to come to INC and tell us about the Special Events and Planning Committee that was being formed to address the kind of disorganized situation that we had in the city regarding the scheduling and announcements and promotion of special events. So after a lengthy process, they come up with some, we had a moratorium last year on events, kind of giving us a breathing period. We thank Katy for that and the city. And now they've come up with a new program that I understand has kind of a year-long process and then maybe some adjustments after that. So Katy and a number of people from Parks and Rec in the city are here, so we very much appreciate you coming. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Larry. As Larry said, my name is Katy Stracina. He even said it right, which is very rare. I wanted to introduce and just point out we've got a few people from the city that has come with me. We have Michael Sapp, who's the community liaison for the mayor. We have Grace Ramirez right here. She is the community liaison for the Office of Special Events. We have Jennie Schiavone right here, who's the city marketing director. And we have our famous Fred Weiss, who is the Director of Finance and Administration for Parks and Rec. And we're happy to see Happy Haynes has joined us to sit in on this presentation. So thank you all from the city for coming. And I want to thank you all for inviting us to come to INC. I haven't been here for a while, so thank you very much for inviting us to come. We're really excited to come back and share with you what it is that what we're doing in the Office of Special Events. Now, I'm familiar with some of you in here and not with others, so I want to give you a very brief overview on how we got to where we are today. We have, as you know, we have special events in the city. I'm going to tell you what special events are. They seem to be all over the place, and I want to give you an idea of what it is that we're talking about. For the Office of Special Events, our world is events that happen on public property, those things that are in your parks and that are on your street. So those are your races, your farmers market, your festivals, your street fairs. Those are all the things that are special events. So that when we're up here talking about it, that's what we're talking about, are those things that happen on public property that are open to the public and that are temporary in nature. They're coming in and then they're going back out again. So that's the world of special events for you. So what we are attempting to do in the Office of Special Events is we're trying to put a process to how events come through the city. Everybody loves events. They are what makes Denver unique, just like our neighborhoods. Events are fantastic. We can go to them on the weekends, we can go to them at night, we can go to them year-round because of our climate. What happened over the course of a couple years, events doubled in the city. We went from 350 events to 650 events in a year. The city wasn't ready for this. Denver is not unique with this. We had this happen all over the country. We did a lot of research and we found out outdoor events are a big deal. People like to go to them. Denver is very unique in its climate, so we have more people that are coming to special events and attending them. And I'm sure most of you go to a lot of different events throughout the course of the year. The People's Fair, Turkey Trot, Pro Cycle Challenge, your farmer's market down the street, your 5K in your local park. All of those, they're very popular. We just had so many happen all at once. So what the Office of Special Events did was we brought a lot of city agencies together to figure out how we can process special events more efficiently, how we can create city processes that allow these events to come in and navigate the city. There are 17 agencies that interact with special events. That's a lot. I'll give you an example, the Turkey Trot. Did anyone go to the Turkey Trot over at Wash Park? Okay, so that's the DPD of Public Works to close the streets. That's Parks Department for the parks. Treasury to pay the taxes. They have beer, so we have excise and license that's involved. They have food, so it's Denver Health. They have bands or music, so there's Denver Health also for sound. So that's just an example. There's so many different agencies that are involved in any one particular event. That's a lot for an event to navigate. So what we did is we came together as a city. We started to problem solve and figure out how we can create a common sense process to bring the events into the city. and to help them navigate. We also realized that we needed to talk to you all. These events are happening in your neighborhoods, they're happening on your streets. We needed to hear from you what's great about them and what's not great, what's working with special events, how the impacts are good, you like the people coming in, or the traffic is bad, the noise is bad. We went out, we wanted to find out all the things that are happening with the residents. We also needed to hear how the city departments are working together. We found out they were all working individually. We needed to bring all the city agencies together to talk to each other and to be able to help these special events happen. So basically, the Office of Special Events is a coordinating, communicating agency. We don't issue a special event permit. We are just helping everyone coordinate. We're helping the agencies coordinate, the event organizers coordinate, and we're coordinating and conversing with the city residents and city businesses. So that's what we are. That's what the Office of Special Events is. We've been open since January of this year. We've just come through our first special event season. We've learned a lot. We know we've got a lot to learn. But what we had to do is, as we went through this season, is we had to figure out what we could do better. What processes we could create in the city that would be more efficient, that would be helpful to the residents, that would be helpful to the event organizers and to the city departments. That's what we've done. We've created some internal processes that help us to work better together as a city, and we've also created some processes that work with the residents. So what I'm going to share with you is a policy that the Office of Special Events has created, and this was a direct ask from this group here and many others. We've had public meetings and stakeholder meetings. We had probably 6 of them. We heard a lot from you all. We went to work as a city. We listened. We heard all of those things that you wanted us to think about and create processes for. And one of the very top things that we wanted to do was to develop a process for notification. When these events are happening, where they're happening, what streets they're closing, when they're closing them, when they're opening them back up again, so that you know not only how to go to an event, but also how to avoid an event if you want to avoid the event. So what we've done in the Office of Special Events is we created a notification policy. This is going to take place January 1st, where every single event, all 650 of them, are going to be required to notify their RNOs in the districts or in the neighborhoods that they are. So what this means is that you all, if you're heads of your RNOs, you're going to be receiving these one-page, it might be a flyer, we're not exactly sure what the format will be, but it will come to your email, and then it's your responsibility to hopefully reach out to your members and let them know what is coming. But every event is going to be required to send this to their RNOs and to their council districts. So that's our baseline. We might do more. But this is where we had to start. We had to start with one place where we knew we had a group of people that represents the entire city. So that's where we're going to need your help when those special events contact you, that you're going to need to pass it on to your members. The city council districts will then put it on their websites, they'll put it in their newsletters. We're not exactly sure how they're going to be using it, but they will also have the information. Now the events we're also encouraging them to use social media. We're asking them to do very different things to reach all different demographics and people. But this is our base. This is where we're starting right now. For the larger events, they'll have social media campaigns, they'll have commercials, they'll be in the newspaper. But the smaller ones, the races, those kinds of things, those are the ones that you're going to be, that you didn't know were coming, that you're now going to start to understand when they're coming and what they're going to be doing. The other thing that's really exciting that we've done as a city is we've added our own layer of notification. I don't know if you've all heard about Pocket Gov. Has anyone in here heard of Pocket Gov? Very nice. Is anyone using Pocket Gov? Nice, nice. Well, then you're in for a treat, all of you that don't know about it. We brought our city marketing director, Jennie Schiavone, and she's going to come up here and chat with you about what Pocket Gov is. But essentially, this is one of our key exciting new additions. It allows you all to view an interactive map of where that event is and what the footprint of that, like what's going on around that event. We have a lot of new features. So there's a lot of features that are coming for this, and Jenny's going to come up in a minute and chat with you about it. but it's one of the top things that you all ask for is a notification push and a place where you can go, everyone can go to the same place and find out what's going on in your neighborhood. So Jenny's going to come up in a minute. So that is essentially, that is our main process, or our policy for the Office of Special Events, this notification. We have all these other agencies that are creating policies themselves, but they're really happening internal to their agency. They won't really impact you. This is the one that really is our response to your needs when we came out here before. So I'm going to push it off right now to Jennie Schiavone. She's going to come up here and chat with you about what PocketGov is and how you all can use it. And then after her, Fred Weiss from Parks is going to come up, and he's going to chat with you about one of the processes that they have created in Parks for you. So, Jennie Schiavone, you want to come on up? Thanks for the water.
Hi everyone, good morning. Katie mentioned, my name is Jennie Schiavone, and I am the new Director of Citywide Marketing for the City and County of Denver. I've been in the position for about 6 months, so really kind of trying to get my arms around everything that we're doing as a city to share our tools and our resources with residents, with neighborhoods, and that sort of thing. And I work closely with Katie and all of the mayor's staff and cabinet, Michael Sapp and his department, and basically every department around the city to really look at how we're talking to the people who work, live, and play in Denver. So PocketGov, I'm glad to see that a lot of you know what it is and are already using it. For those who don't know, PocketGov is a mobile web application that the city launched last January. It's a tool that is still evolving, essentially, so it's not a native app, so you won't find it in the App Store. You have to go to pocketgov.com, and it's a mobile responsive site, so you can go there on your computer, on your tablet, on your smartphone, any device basically will work with PocketGov. So you go to the website, and there's actually if you're looking at it on your phone, in the FAQs section, if you scroll down, the first question should be, how do I add a shortcut to my mobile device? So if you click on that, it gives you a list of steps depending on what type of smartphone you're using or what your mobile device is. But that'll essentially, if you follow those steps, you can get an icon that looks and functions like an app would on the home screen of your phone or your tablet that you can just click on and not have to go to the website every time. If you're looking at the tool on your computer, then you would just bookmark that website essentially so that you can go back to it. But what PocketGov is essentially another communication tool to talk to the city, to report problems in your neighborhoods, to ask questions like you would calling 311. And we're building out additional functionality in the form of things like street sweeping reminders that you can sign up for, waste pickup reminders. You can get reminders out for your recycling and trash pickup days. There's a special events map now that we just launched a couple of months ago, which right now, as it stands today, will show you pinpoint, events on the map, including farmers markets, which is brand new. So you can look at something that's coming up that maybe you want to do over the weekend, or as Katie said, maybe a part of town you want to avoid because you know there's going to be street closures and that sort of thing. We're actually working on a functionality right now that will create a perimeter to show you which streets are closed. Right now, the map won't show you that, but that's coming in the next month or so, probably. Katie mentioned the ability to do push notifications. That's something that we're working on. It's not available yet, but the idea is that ideally we'll get to a point where we can push out information to you that, you'll get an alert on your phone saying, hey, we see that you're near Spear and Colfax, don't forget that there's a marathon today and the streets are shut down, kind of a thing. Or, hey, it's recycling pickup day, don't forget to put it out. Right now, when you sign up for the reminders, you can choose to get an email reminder, I think a text reminder, or a Twitter reminder for things like that. So there are avenues to get into your inbox or whatever you choose to get reminded through, but it won't do a push notification on your phone today. We're working on that. Some of the other features are you can get property tax information on PocketGov. You can find the nearest B-cycle station and see how many bikes are available. Voter information, you can get links to back to the Denver election site where you can make sure that you're registered, check election results, and that sort of thing. Launching it should be in the next week or two, we'll have DMV renewals available on PocketGov, so you can go and renew your tags easily, no service charge, that kind of a thing. So we're really excited about that. And as I said, it's an evolving tool. So every month we're adding a new feature right now. We're also looking for feedback, since this is a tool that's still sort of in its infancy for the city. So there's a site feedback function where you guys can send us a message and say, hey, this didn't work right for me, am I doing something wrong? Or hey, here's a great idea that I have. And we are actively taking that information and exploring ideas. So we're really pushing that customer feedback portion of the tool right now. In fact, DMV and a couple of other functions came directly from that kind of resident feedback. So we encourage you to let us know what you want. PocketGov is really sort of just another channel for you to get through to us. It's not replacing 311. There's been some confusion about that in the community. So we really want to stress that you can still call 311, you can still come into the web building or city offices to do the business that you do with the city. But the intent of PocketGov is to just make that process easier. If you don't want to wait in line at the DMV, if you don't want to come in to pay a parking ticket, that sort of thing you can do, in seconds on your phone now or on your desktop at work. The difference between PocketGov and DenverGov, which is, of course, our website, is just that PocketGov is sort of a streamlined toolbox, really, for the things that you're doing on a daily or weekly or monthly basis with the city. So that you're not having to go to DenverGov and search for, a page that might be 3 pages deep on the website. So that's where we're going with this. We're trying to make city living and doing business with the city easier, faster, quicker. We're also trying to give just another layer of communication between you as a resident and the city. So if you want to pick up the phone and call 311, great. If you want to just take a picture of a pothole and send it in through PocketGov, that's great too. It all gets funneled through the same customer relationship center, basically. So that's the down and dirty. Yes.
So you're saying that, it doesn't replace 311, which I can no longer find on the App Store, but the difference between 311 and PocketGov is that with PocketGov, you have to log in. So you cannot report anything anonymously, which is a real disincentive, I think, for a lot of people to report certain things that are going on in the city. So that is a big problem. That's
a good point that you bring up. So you do have the option to sign up, create a user profile, and log your addresses that you use. Like, for example, I have a home address, a work address, that sort of thing. And that helps customize and personalize the services that you get with PocketGov. You don't have to create a profile to report something. You can do it anonymously. There just isn't a reach back tool then for 311 to call you back and say, hey, we need some more information, or hey, we wanted to let you know that this was resolved. So,
but you have the confirmation number, so you can still check on it. Is that correct?
That's a good question. I will check on that. I'm not sure, but I'll check on that. And if you want, I can get your name and follow up with you on that. Yeah, no problem. And in fact, I'm actually going to, I'll set up a laptop out here. I know you guys have other topics to cover, so I don't want to take up the entire meeting with a PocketGov demo, but I'll set up a laptop out here and I'll be hanging out until about 11 o'clock, so if anyone wants to sneak out and come walk through it with me, I'm happy to do that. Yeah?
Data that's sent through 311, is it in the same database?
It is. It's one database.
One database for both PocketGov and 311.
Exactly, and in fact, we're upgrading that database right now. We're launching a new customer relationship management tool next week that our technology services department has worked with 311 to put in place, which will make it an even more robust reporting system. Yeah. I think I'm going to wrap up and kick over to Fred, who is here from Parks and Recreation, to talk to you guys too. Thanks for giving me a few minutes.
Hello, some of you probably know me. I've been around for a while. Fred Weiss, I'm the Director of Finance and Administration for Parks and Recreation, and one of the areas that I supervise is park permitting. And so that's why I'm here and was very involved in developing this pilot program. I'm going to give you a pretty high-level overview of what we're proposing. A document is being passed around that has all of the details. And so I'm going to be pretty quick and then open it up for questions, because I would imagine you folks are going to have questions. So As Katy mentioned, or Larry mentioned actually, the cap on special events is coming off as of the end of 2015, as of January 1st, 2016. And so we heard very loud and clear from all the meetings that Katy mentioned that there was issues around congestion and being able to use the park, and neighbors having concerns about the number and size of special events that are occurring in the parks. So what we decided to do is develop a pilot program, 1 year, to establish rest periods in our most busiest parks. And that way, and the purpose is to, number one, provide a balance between the folks who like having events in the parks and the folks who want to be able to enjoy the park without all that activity. And the other big reason is to give the turf in the park a rest, because special events, especially larger ones, really stress the turf, and it needs time to recover and to maintain its health. So that's really the overall purpose. Those are the two reasons for this pilot program. One of the keys is that what we're really looking for is feedback during this whole process. We want to know how it's working, and we will be reaching out to you and various other organizations, stakeholder groups, including the event organizers, to say, is this working? Do we need to tweak it? Is it really a good thing? Does it need to change? How is that going to work? So we are very, very much looking forward to coming back, and we will develop a mechanism for being able to receive feedback. I can't tell you exactly what that is yet because we haven't worked it out, but the event season starts in April. And so prior to that, we will establish some mechanisms and we'll let you all know. The rest periods are going to be in effect from April 1st to October 31st, which is obviously the peak event season. And on the document that you passed around, there's 7 parks, and the rest periods range from 2 weekend days a month to 4 weekend days a month. In addition, there's a few other things that we've included in the pilot. Like no new events on the 3 major summer holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, to allow families to be able to go to the parks as they're able to. But obviously any existing events will continue. All current events will continue if they desire, if they come back and want to continue. So we're not eliminating any events that have occurred. Also, by the way, the Public Works, we've worked with all of the departments, Public Works, Denver Police, obviously the Office of Special Events, in developing this pilot program. And Public Works has agreed to not permit anything on the street within 1 block of these parks during these rest periods, because obviously that would be counterproductive. If somebody wants the park and they can't have the park, then they just have their event in the street. So they've agreed within 1 block of that park there won't be any permits issued during these rest periods. That's about it. That's the very high level, that's the summary of what we're proposing or what we are going to be doing in 2016. I'd like to open it up to questions because I think that'll be the most productive. Yes?
Question as to why Cheeseman Park got 4 rest days, but the parks that are way busier than only 3. If you're really resting the turf, you've got City Park, Wash Park, 3 weekend days per month, and Cheeseman with 4. I'm just curious why the busier parks didn't get the 4 days.
Well, we internally both. I'm sorry?
Repeat the question. All right.
The question is fundamentally, how did we come up with the number of rest period days for these parks? Why is Cheeseman 4 and City Park is 3 and the like? Well, it started off internally. We met many times and tried to figure out, well, what's the neighborhood like? What's the condition in the park? How close are neighbors? What's the nature of the park? And Cheeseman is very different than City, for example, because it's surrounded right on the border.
So are we right on the border of City Park?
Right, but we can contain the events within City Park into some internal areas. City Park is clearly a problem. The horse is out of the barn on City Park. We have, as it says in the introduction, city ordinances has a priority. There's an ordinance that grants priority to events that says if you're in the same park, the same date, or the same weekend for 2 years in a row, you have priority for that park. And so in City Park, there are many, many events that have priority. So in effect, if you look at the chart, City Park.
Yeah, it says like 3 days rest days in June, but 0 of them are actually going to happen.
That's right. So in effect, there will be no new events in City Park. If you look at the far right-hand column under City Park, there will be no new events. There are no dates available for new events in City Park on the weekend from April to October. And there's nothing really that we can do about the events that are currently there because they are protected by ordinance, which is law.
That's why there's actually no rest day in June.
That's correct. That's
And will
correct.
that ultimately work into a rest day?
Well, there's two answers to the question.
Okay.
By attrition, certainly, if this policy, if this pilot program actually continues, because that's that's a fundamental question: is this going to work? But if it does continue, it would free it up by attrition. But we are not able to, like I said, it's law that the priority exists.
Because in City Park, those 3 days actually are not going to occur, except once.
That's correct.
So the rest of the time, it's just business as usual. So there's no rest period. Or you say target is 3 days,
Well,
and you look over here, and there's 0, 1, 1, 1, and 1.
That's correct.
So it's not really a pilot program for 3 days. Rest days. If you're only going to get 0 or 1, right?
Yes.
You can't really test it in City Park.
City Park that's correct. But what this does do is it stops new events from being able to come in. We can't turn back the clock. So, but we can draw the line in the sand moving forward.
The question over here. The point is kind of that you're hoping people will go to other parks.
Absolutely. When people come in and want an event in City Park, we'll obviously say, on a weekend, we'll obviously say, I'm sorry, that's not available, but here are the parks that are available. So it will hopefully spread events out to parks that actually need to be activated and where neighbors want some more events in the parks.
Are there going to be activated parks that are not listed?
There are many parks that are available, yes. The rest periods are only applied to these parks from April to October. Yes, sir.
Has the city ever considered relaxing the permit required for an RNO who wants to have a neighborhood meeting or a neighborhood picnic where fees are not charged? I know right now we got to go through jumping through a bunch of hoops. There's a $500,000 insurance we gotta have. We gotta have a very expensive permit, and we can't afford that.
Well, we can certainly put that on the list of things to consider.
If you go through your council person, they can usually get that fee waived for you.
Some of them will, some of them won't.
Huh?
Yeah, we can definitely consider that. Yes, sir.
Since the Office of Special Events has been open for a year, have you been able to collect information about how much it costs the city for special events? And are the permit fees covering the expenses to the city?
Very good question. The answer is sort of. I'm sorry, the question is it's cost recovery. That's the question. The question is have we been able to figure out how much events cost the city as compared to how much revenue comes in from special events?
As opposed to your costs. That's the second part of the question.
Yeah.
Right.
So, unfortunately, the city's accounting system is not a great cost accounting system. It is being replaced. in 2017, and which the new system does have a great deal more capacity and capability to identify costs by cost center, by function, by task. So the difficulty really is in labor, obviously. Labor is 70 to 80% of the city's costs. So we've got some ballparks, but there's so many agencies that are involved in terms of parks, public works, the Office of Special Events, environmental health, Denver Police. There's a lot of, for example, for parks, we get a damage deposit. And so if there's damage to the park, we take it out of the damage deposit. So the damage actually doesn't cost us anything. So it's unfortunately very complicated, and currently the city's accounting system does not have the capability. Yeah.
So what I also wanted to emphasize, thank you Fred, and I'll hand it back to you, is that our office is brand new. We had never put 17 agencies together and tried to track one impact of 17 agencies. So we are gradually adding capabilities and services each year. We have a software system that's being built specifically for our agency that will track everything for all 17 agencies. But we've never had an Office of Special Events. We've never had a focus on special events so we have to create a tracking system that all 17 agencies can feed into. So what Fred has said is absolutely right on, but we also have to add, this is a new service and a new agency, so we have to create it from the ground up. So that is happening. Tech Services is building us the software system. We're hoping that it will be ready by the end of this year, where we will begin to start tracking. Right now it's manual tracking. We're tracking every event, every impact that's happening in every agency. I mean, it's a massive manual effort, but we are doing it. So to add to that.
I have a follow-up question on costs. Does your agency also draw its revenue, its support from the fees of special events, or do we pay for it directly as taxpayers?
So our office is general fund. We're not charging anything from our office. We don't issue a special event permit, so we're just a function, an organizing function of the city. Does that answer?
So even the permit revenue goes to the general fund. It is not dedicated to covering the costs of special events. So all permit revenue is general fund, and then the mayor annually decides how to spend the general fund bucket, and the Office of Special Events is one of the appropriations.
When the admission-based events policy was passed, one of the provisions was that revenue from admission-based events would go to the parks. Is that happening, or does that money go to the general fund?
No, that's happening. So admission-based events, if I remember right, 50% went directly to the park where the event occurred, and 50% goes to the parks in general. And that is happening, and that fund, those monies do not lapse at the end of the year. They stay in what we call a special revenue fund, and it is spent on that park and on general parks.
And do the neighborhoods surrounding those parks have any kind of say in how that money is being spent?
Not specifically, no. I mean, it is determined by the park professionals in terms of its maintenance. It's how to maintain the park in order to be able to, recover from or, handle those events. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on something that Larry said. As an example, several years ago, the People's Fair in Civic Center Park paid a huge deposit fee, maybe $2,500 or $3,500. Probably even more than that. And that was for damage. It was a damage deposit. So the event was held in June, and I noticed in August, 2 months later, that some of the damaged areas that the People's Fair was charged for on that deposit were still not mitigated, were not repaired. So I pressed the issue, and I said, and I inquired as to what happened to that money. And they said, oh, well, we needed a new lawnmower in Ruby Hill Park. So that goes counter to what you just told us. Is that practice still in place? I mean, that's some shady activity within the Parks Department, to put it mildly. I guess my point is, if an event holds an event in Civic Center, Cheeseman, or wherever, and there's damage, the damage should be repaired there if the money is retained to do so.
I'm not trying to sidestep the issue, but I'm the wrong person to answer that question.
Okay.
Because that really is a parks issue in terms of how the money that they have is prioritized and spent. So I'm really not trying to avoid answering the question, but I really don't know. I don't know the specifics of that situation, and I don't know how that priority decision was made. Yeah, no, People's Fair, so that wasn't dedicated, but in terms of the damage deposit being withheld, I do know that Civic Center does have issues in terms of, I mean, I've heard some conversations about there are so many events that sometimes it doesn't make sense to repair the damage midstream because there's going to be just so many more events in the park. So now I don't know, I'm not saying that that's the reason because I don't know, but I have heard conversations about, well, we're waiting until the end of the year to repair something.
But it's a fair question, and I think
it is a fair question.
We can't answer it today, but we certainly, it makes sense, and we can certainly get an answer to you about how we treat damage deposits and what the practice is.
I think it should just be fair with the event and the city.
Yep.
Are they retaining everybody's damage deposits? That's having an event there.
Whether there's damage or not.
If they don't use it to repair the damage and the time the damage is done, and then the next event comes along and it ends up paying for damage that was already incurred, so that's 2 deposits, and the next one means 3 deposits. So, it's a cumulative thing that needs to be addressed at the time of damage, or a lot of other events end up paying extra too.
But you don't know if that's being happened.
Right. So that's something that Happy and her folks.
Yeah, we can let you know how how we manage the damage deposits and what happens and when and how they're accounted for.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, my question is on the other end of the situation. My experience with the Office of Special Events happened this year when we had a block party during Denver Days. And the group itself was just a bunch of community members. We had someone come out and listen to the decibels that were taking place, 80 decibels, which is very, very low. But somehow or another, your machine and my machine recorded 2 different types. And because there was no specific person that was responsible for this community gathering, we were fined $500, but who's going to end up paying for the $500? So we went into court. The Cherry Blossom Festival was in court with us. They had the recording decibel levels that was off the chart because their closest resident was 400 or 500 feet up in the air because, this was a ground level event and you were taking your readings from these different places. Now you have an event that should have been grandfathered in that was not, that has been doing this for the past 50 years, and then we have people coming out doing readings. Neither one of us had complaints from any resident in the neighborhood as far as this event, but we were still fined. They threw it out of court, of course, which is a part of your going through this process, but if there's no complaint filed by any one individual within the resident, how can you turn around and charge or fine a group?
So I will take a stab at this. This is the Department of Environmental Health enforces the sound ordinance. And what I want to just give you a quick example of is the sound ordinance is no different than perhaps one of the ordinances in a restaurant. If a restaurant is dirty, we don't wait for a complaint. We have to enforce our ordinance. Same with sound ordinance. We can't necessarily wait for a complaint. If you violated the sound ordinance, then we have to enforce the sound. And I say we speaking for the city, but this is in ordinance and it is environmental health. So what has happened is that it has not been enforced for many years, and it is beginning its enforcement. We got complaints all over the city for sound, and sound as it related to special events. And environmental health is, their enforcement has been equitable across the city. Every single event that broke the sound, or that violated the sound ordinance was cited. There was no difference in what kind of event or when or how long it existed. It's an ordinance, and it's no different from a restaurant or a healthcare system or a tattoo parlor. If there's an ordinance, we must enforce it, whether there's a complaint or not. But you can follow up the Department of Environmental Health, and they will absolutely sit down and talk with you and go over those pieces with you for your event.
So
I actually wanted to thank you, because I'm South City Park and we've been a thorn in the side of Parks and Rec for decades. But I wanted to say this is the first summer we haven't been driven out of our homes every weekend because of the noise.
Well, 80,
so that is, I just want to say thank you.
80 decibels is the sound of a blowing horn on a car. That's 80 decibels. You can't hear that, but if you have a consistent 80 decibels, that's not very loud. It is also the sound of an alarm clock. So, I mean, you know, there's got to be some kind of give and take within that, and I'm sorry about what's going on.
We've been driven out of our homes every summer, every weekend for decades, and this summer was the first time we weren't. So I just want to say thank you. We appreciate that.
Two very other quick comments about it. You know, similar to what I said about the priority, 80 decibels is what the law says. So whether it's reasonable, that is the law, and it's our public duty, our duty to enforce the law. The other piece, the other piece is that the sound meters and monitors that we have are the official sound monitors, and they are very, very expensive. And those are much more accurate than what you can get on your smartphone. So they're $700–800 a piece. So yes, of course, there are going to be differences between our sound monitor and the sound monitor off of an iPhone or off of any kind of smartphone. But ours is the ones that are calibrated very accurately. Just so you can understand probably the difference between that.
And just to calibrate, Katie was speaking at 80 decibels.
Right.
Yeah. Fred, not so much.
Because I'm holding the microphone. Other questions about rest periods?
I still just have an issue with City Park because it says the idea is to rest the turf, but you're not actually resting it. So you are assuming that attrition over time will allow those three actual rest days?
Well,
or will we never have rest days in City Park?
I don't have a crystal ball. We're not assuming. We're saying that that would be appropriate for City Park, but again, just like the sound ordinance, the priority event is an ordinance. It's the law. We cannot, even if we wanted to, and I'm not sure if we would want to. It's not a conversation. We can't get rid of the events that are already there. Just not. It violates the law.
So in all probability, City Park will never have its rest days.
That's a suggestion.
I've been to City Park with no events planned, even during the summer. Yes, I have. Yeah. Other than the zoo and the national history.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Dave and I and some of the other people in IMC were involved in the admission-based events task force back in 2009 when the policy was passed. At the time it was passed, it was a one-year trial period for admission-based events. I remember at the time there was an estimate of $500,000 in revenue that went before the Parks Advisory Board. Since that time, I'm not clear about what's happened. They've just kind of continued on without any kind of review to see how much money we've made from admission-based events. We, again, have no cost-benefit analysis. What is the current status of admission-based events in terms of an ordinance or the permanency of this policy which was originally just to be a trial period of 1 year.
So that should be.
Well, no, we gave an annual report to the advisory board and have heard no complaints about admission-based events. The same answer in terms of the cost recovery, it's very difficult. If
but in
not
terms
impossible.
of revenue, how much revenue have we generated?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I mean,
it's very little, I'd say.
Yeah, there has not been a lot of activity in terms of admission-based events. There's, we have received, as far as I know, no complaints about admission-based events, and we have given annual updates to the.
Well, you did receive you received a lot of complaints about the event that took place in City Park regarding the
Chai Fest,
which was an admission-based event.
Which did not occur again. Yes, sir.
A sort of broader question. I'm struck by the fact that if you're grandfathered in, you're good for life, and no one else can come in now to a park. To me, that's an inappropriate way, and you're going to say, well, that's the law, but it's an inappropriate way, it seems to me, to if I want to use this word, ration a rare resource, particularly for a public entity. It seems to me that there ought to be like the way they do this for a lot of other things, a lottery or something, so that, you take your shot at it. For example, in my home city of Melbourne, there's a wonderful national park where you can camp. But and I think that happens here too, you get to put in your bid for a camping spot, they draw it out of a hat, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Most times you lose, in fact. Seems to me that we ought to be doing exactly that here. I hate the idea that, we're going to have Budweiser Fest every year for life, and we're not going to have something else. Times change, things change, people change, and neighbourhoods change. And I think we ought to have a system, and I think the Office of Special Events could show a little leadership here and make sure that happens.
Well, it's just
particularly if we're paying for it.
Just in speaking on that, we feed 8,000 to 10,000 people a year. If we don't get our permit, where do all these people go to get their food? So you have to have some method of grandfathering in certain programs.
No, that ought to be part of the program, certainly, but to lock it in so there's no change seems to me to be...
Probably another hour.
We need to get the law changed.
It's probably an hour conversation, which I don't think you want to engage in at the moment. But there are multiple perspectives and it's very complicated. Do you not want to have the People's Fair every year? So there's, there are pros and cons, and I understand. But really, if you are that passionate about it, the right avenue is through City Council, because they're the ones who pass the ordinances. So, we enforce the ordinance. And by the way, it's not uncommon at all across the nation. This is how many, many, many cities across the nation handle their events. There are some that don't, but most handle it either 2 years, 3 years, in order to be able to maintain consistency. So, it's a very complicated issue. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing to that. With the Office of Special Events opening, what we wanted to make sure that we were doing is that the events, these small events, large events, we're trying to make them more safe and compliant. So that it's the impacts of these events. So if they are grandfathered in, if they are coming back year after year, then what we can do is we can ensure that they are compliant, that they're abiding by all the ordinances, they're pulling all their permits, they're not over their sound regulations. So we're trying to make them the best quality event that can exist. And keep in mind, your city park events, some of them are really small. You don't even know that they're happening on one side of the park. So we may be full and not having another event, but you may not even know that event is happening. It could be one corner of the park, the whole 3 quarters of the park is unactivated. So keep that in mind when you think about every weekend for every event. Not all events are created equal, not all of them have amplification, not all of them are the same size, and you won't even know that most of them are happening because of that. So I just want to add that to it. But to the grandfather clause, we're trying to make them the best quality events They're building relationships with the communities that they're in. They're notifying you. They're safe. We have their map out so you know how to get around them. So we're trying to make it the best for everyone. And we had a record of 5.1 million people in 2012 went to these events. And that was when we had 350 events. So these events are popular. People are going to them. Far more people now than there were then. So it's just about, it's the balance of the entire picture and letting the events exist, but also that they're good players and that they are respecting the neighborhoods that are hosting them.
I just want to thank you for giving a rest to our parks. It's not perfect, but I really, really think it's important.
You're welcome.
So thank you for doing that. And what's your annual budget for this office?
For the Office of Special Events?
Yeah.
350 for a staff of 5.
Any other questions? So again, I really look forward. Please keep your eyes open during this upcoming event season and let us know how this is working. We really will, and we will get back to you, as I said, on what mechanisms we'll be putting in place in order to get that feedback, but we really, truly want that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to compliment Parks and Rec for recognizing the balance, if you will, between the pastoral nature of parks and the needs for events. That's something that we put in our park platform some years ago, and we appreciate you recognizing that, Fred, and Happy, and then Katie. Thanks a lot. Okay, next month, we won't have a meeting next month because it's a holiday. We wish you all a happy holiday, but in January, our meeting will be at Wings Over the Rockies. Wings Over the Rockies. It's going to be an exciting meeting. We'll have lots going on there. So you all have a happy holiday. Thank you for coming and participating and all that you do for our neighborhoods.